The most important thing when it comes to you preparing for a presentation is beginning with that end in mind. Thinking about what you're trying to do, your outcome when it comes to your presentation. Too often, I do not see people focus on this. Instead, what happens is people in the manufacturing environment tend to focus on the problem, what's going on, what they know, and that's all they focus on when they go to present to management. And so when we go and present to management or present to anybody that's not us, that's not an engineer like us, that's in the weeds, we need to think about that end goal in mind. But why do we need to do that? Because you're probably thinking, Philip, you're crazy because I need to talk about the details of what it is that I'm dealing with right now. But here's the thing, you don't. If you focus in on the details, it's going to get in the way of everything else. And I know I've talked about this before, but this is such an important thing for you to understand. When you are going into a presentation or a speech, the most important thing that you can think about first and foremost before any of the content, any of the ideas of what it is you're going to talk about is what is the outcome that you want? And then who is that audience you're speaking to as well? So there's really two things there, but I want us to focus in on the outcome in mind. And the audience does play into this as well. But if we do not think about where we are going with our presentation, how do we know when it was a successful presentation? Because when you're in an environment such as a manufacturing environment where you're presenting, you're not going to have a standing ovation at the end like you may have when you're in front of thousands or tens of thousands of people. After you get done with your speech, you may have people stand up and cheer you on, and they're cheering you on because you had a great speech. You were very impactful. You were uplifting, whatever that looks like. They're there, they're cheering you on. And so you know your speech went really well, especially if that was the tone that the speech was supposed to be. But when you're in a presentation in a corporate setting, you're not going to have all of a sudden everybody just, oh yeah, like, no, people are not going to be cheering for you. So how do you know when your presentation went well? And it's by knowing that you got to your desired outcome. And I use this analogy all the time, but it's the perfect analogy. If I am going to a destination, I don't just start going. I know my destination. And I know I successfully had a successful trip because I made it to that destination. And it's the same exact thing with our speech. If we know the outcome, we can know whether that speech was successful or not. At least successful in the fact that we got the information there. Just like on our road trip, maybe we got a ticket. Maybe we had to stop more times than we wanted to. Maybe we crashed a vehicle and had to get another one. I've actually been there where, and this is a funny little story, so I'll share it really quickly. I had flown into Houston, Texas to go see my family. We pick up a car and the windshield just, it was weird. It was like distorted and it was like right in my line of sight. And we had a lot of driving we were planning on doing. And so I was like, I cannot keep this vehicle. I've got to go switch it out. And so it was during the week when I had gotten there. So I was able to go to another location that was not at the airport, which is 45 minutes away from my parents' house. So I go to that location and something happened with the first one. The second one had the windshield. But anyways, there was something wrong with the first one. I think it had like a check engine light or something. And I was like, oh, that's not good. We're about to go drive a good bit. So I don't want to have that as soon as we get this because, oh yeah, we were going to take it back all the way back to South Carolina. So we had a long drive coming up ahead of us. And then we had that second one with the windshield. I'm like, I am not driving this with that windshield. And then we got the third vehicle and somebody rear-ended me. And I say all this because while we still made it to our destination of South Carolina in the end, we knew that's where we were trying to go. And so we knew this windshield wouldn't work out. We knew that the maintenance light wouldn't work out. And then obviously we got in an accident. And so that didn't work out. So there was all these things that kind of happened along the way, yet we were still successful because we ended up making it to South Carolina, which was our destination. And so because we knew of our destination, we knew what things would be okay to get away with and what wouldn't. If I would have been staying in the Houston area, I probably wouldn't have worried about a check engine light. If I would have been staying in the Houston area, I probably wouldn't have worried about that windshield and the distortions on it where it was really annoying to drive in it because I'm not going that far. But because I knew my destination was in South Carolina, and if you're asking about the accident one, yeah, I couldn't drive that. It didn't matter if I was in Houston or not. So that one was an obvious, that's why we got a new vehicle. But, and the other one finally did work. We got to be able to take that one. But because I knew I was going to South Carolina and not staying in the Houston area, I knew that I needed a vehicle that was going to be comfortable, that did not have any possible issues with it to take with me to South Carolina, because it was going to be a very far trip. And if you don't know, it's about a 16-hour drive without stops, about 800 and something miles. So it's a very far drive, but I knew my destination. So I knew the things that I needed to have in place, which was a good working vehicle in this case, for me to make it to my destination successfully. And so the same thing for us. When we know what our end goal is, we can then reverse engineer our presentation. And this is where the audience and stuff like that comes in. Okay, what is this audience looking for? What are the things that they need? But too often we want to get bogged down in the details to start right away, and we don't think about the end destination. Does the management team need to make a decision from this? Do they just need some high level information based on what I'm presenting here? What are those things that they need from my presentation? Not what do I think I need? What do I think I want? And I'm going to present on that, or just I'm going to present on all the knowledge I know. Because if I'm in an engineer spot or in a very technical spot, where I'm in the details, I'm doing the day-to-day stuff where I know way more than the management team, I don't need to share that with them, because they just need to make a decision or get an update. And so having that end in mind allows us to know how to put our presentation together to start with. Now, there's a lot more details, and we'll have other videos on this. We've talked about this in the past as well. But knowing the end goal will allow us to be able to figure out what it is that's important for us to talk about. Again, if I need management to make a decision on a project that's coming up, some program changes perhaps that I need to make, I need to be thinking about that rather than just talking about, oh yeah, we got these program changes and here we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and this is what it looks like to do those program changes. It's going to take us this amount of time. That's not helping management have the information they need in order to make a decision to say, Philip, go ahead with those program changes. But if I say, hey, we need to do these program changes because it's going to help production increase their volume or XYZ, whatever the reason is behind why you need to do the program changes, now they actually have the information they need to sign off on it and approve it because, hey, yeah, we want to improve safety. We want to improve production so we can increase our efficiency and increase the volume that we output on a day-to-day basis. But if I just go in there thinking about what I'm working on and what I'm doing to make the program happen, they're not going to get the correct information. Now, if I'm talking to engineers, that's a totally different story. People that are in the weeds with me, totally different story. But knowing the outcome that you're trying to get, which is approval on this program in this example, we're not going to go into those details. And that goes back to knowing the audience as well. But if you're going into management, first starting with that end in mind is going to be crucial for you to present in a proper way. And as I keep saying, we're going to talk about it in another video, but knowing that audience from there is the next important thing. But just having that end goal in mind will allow you to put filters and keep you in a lane focused on the direction that you're trying to go, and will allow you to know when you're veering off or not. So when you're preparing a presentation, first start with the end in mind.